Cubbon Park is not a thoroughfare. It's a piece of our soul. How many thousands of pups would have been bought online, sick and dying terrible deaths? I detest the word activism.
Today on the Expressions podcast, we're joined by someone who seamlessly blends corporate strategy with civic conscience. Priya Chetty, managing partner at Multiversal Advisory LLP, is not only a respected consultant and leadership expert, she's also a passionate changemaker. She's also a civic evangelist. Whether it's her frontline role in the iconic Steel Flyover Beta movement that mobilized citizens to protect Bengaluru's heritage, or her dedicated work in animal welfare and rights advocacy, Priya walks her talk. She challenges corporate greed, pushes for civic engagement, and advocates for action that's grounded in ethics and not just emotion. With her trademark clarity and courage, she reminds us that real leadership doesn't just sit in boardrooms, it shows up on the streets, in courtrooms, and in everyday choices.
Welcome to Expressions. From boardrooms to civic battles to canine compassion, she reminds us that purpose has many faces. She is Priya Chetty. Thank you for coming here today.
Thank you.
I'd like to begin by asking, you speak about embracing the and instead of choosing the or. So what did it take for you to start living this philosophy, and how did it help shape your decisions?
Sure. Thanks for that question. I found this very powerful. The idea of embracing the and rejecting the or. For most of our business life, we've been taught to focus. Keep that focus. Do one thing and do it well. And that's very good, and that makes a lot of sense. But guess what? We are people with multiple facets. We do multiple things. So I'll get into the cliche of saying as women, we're wives, mothers, daughters, all those things. We're also scuba divers. We're also, heritage experts. We're all sorts of things. We are kind of discouraged from bringing our all to where we are. It's almost like keep this personality here. This is for that. We never can be that way. So that's one aspect of it, which I felt that sort of struck with me. The other thing was the idea that focus is something very important, because it's almost like you had 100 ml of stuff and then you use your limited focus and you do this, then you reserve again, then you do that. You know that famous cartoon of an old woman going down a roller coaster? She's used up, completely crazy, having the blast of her life, but just completely happy. Running on many engines, doing what they want. I'd rather be that woman on the roller coaster saying, let's do everything we can and however we can and however fast we can and enjoy all the different facets of our lives. And it comes back to the and or, because once we keep rejecting things because it's not in our focus area, I think we just become these very unidimensional kind of people. And it also stops us from exploring our different parts. If I had been a little bit more embracing of the end, I would have taken on a lot more things, and I would not have done myself the disservice of calling it a hobby. And I think earlier corporate, from where I came from, was very disrespectful of any other parts of yourself you brought to work. You were taught to be professional. Being professional was sticking to one thing. So do not get intimidated by people who say, you figure out what you have to do. But my God, if you want to live life, live it the end way.
Yeah, and just be your true, authentic self, right?
And be all of yourself.
Yeah.
I think I've met so many people whose other self I had no idea about. But when they bring it to where they are, there's so much of a better interaction.
Lovely. So you've said, don't bring me your bleeding heart, bring your mind and your hands. How do you balance emotional commitment with strategic action?
Yeah. So look at the spaces that tend to gather, catch at ourselves, which is the three, apart from my work, which is as managing partner of Multiversal Advisory, certainly civic issues have my attention, heritage and animal welfare. All these three are very highly emotional and highly engaged kind of spaces, where you tend to get, fuzzy logic is good, being warm and empathetic and passionate is good, but sometimes it's not enough. And what I see, and I see this particularly in animal welfare, it's almost like it's okay because your heart is bleeding so much and you want to show, I mean, you're expressing your concern and something, but you're not bringing your mind to the game, you're not bringing your feet to the game. So what happens is everybody is too busy chest beating and self-flagellating and saying, basically everyone should know what a kind, caring person I am. I'm sorry, it doesn't matter. Today, a puppy was drowning in a tank. 3 people called up and said, we don't know what to do. I missed that WhatsApp message. It took 5 minutes for somebody, he has been struggling the whole night. That's what I'm saying. Everybody's very emotional. What do we do? What do we do? It was reported, so we got action going. Only one person went there and said the door was locked. He broke it with a hammer, but by the time he reached, it was too late. The puppy had drowned. This happened just this morning. So I say, you may have your emotions about something, but I'm unimpressed with it because it doesn't take me anywhere. Let us assume we're all Bangalore people, at the end of it. We love our city. It's our breath, it's our life, we love it. So I don't have to keep telling you I love the city. What I need to do is be able to put some of it into action, put some of it into movable, executable parts that make sense. So just like that little puppy that everybody reported with their bleeding heart, there was one man who went there and broke the gate with a hammer and got it done. When you bring your mind to the game, you're thinking hard, you're looking at solutions, and then you follow it up with feet on the ground by doing something about it. And I strongly encourage that. So for me, the biggest insult is when I tell somebody they're being cute. Don't do this cutesy thing. Let's get going. And it's so easy to do once you know how to do it. But I must be kinder, and I realize that people don't always have a measure of how to execute things or how to go forward. They do tend to get paralyzed. So I do want to appreciate that. And I've come a long way from there as well. So one of the things that I invest in is empowerment, information, knowledge. So at the end of it, you have basically an SOP to know how to do what, and that works.
So when you said, I'm curious, you said this is not your area. So do you have like a WhatsApp group for every area to rescue animals?
So I separate out these hats, right? So I have the multiversal hat. I have the diversity and inclusion women's leadership hat, the city hat, the heritage hat, and the animal welfare hat. So what I realized was, and this is again an example of how I try to focus on things which need to be done, incorporating the heart and the concerns, the worry that is needed, but also trying to find a single lever that will help. So in my earlier days, I had tried to work with communities, and I knew it was of course helpful. In my area, I was doing certain things, and I remember thinking, oh well, if I can manage Spencer Road like this, and we have no dogs, we have no this, so we're good. Every road has 3 sets of people, and there's no problem. So what I did was I set up something called the Canine Squads. It's a group of people, volunteers, which are hyper local, connected on a hub and spoke model. So we have an admin group as well. So each of these groups, Indiranagar has about say 450 people. Cunningham Road, which we are in right now, has about 300. Some of them are 100, some of them are 200, some 100, doesn't really matter. But we have a wide range of groups. And they focus only on their area, one. The second thing is they focus on human-animal coexistence. So while it may say Canine Squad, we also of course focus on cats. But our focus is on keeping human communities engaged, positive, and collaborating with us. Because if RWAs or local residents realize that we are trying to help them by vaccinating all the dogs, by neutering all the dogs, so there are no puppies dying, poisoned, killed, stoned. So the population is going to remain at a steady rate and probably decline. The vaccinations are all done. So even if you pet a little puppy and it scratches you, have nothing to worry about. So human communities realize that we are doing something which is for the larger good. So we're not these dog mad people who are saying, dogs. We've got a larger remit. We have to address a larger demographic. If I'm going to be talking to you and you're a dog lover and you worry about certain things, I have no desire to sort of engage with you and convince you of things, because I'm preaching to the choir. So the moment I expanded this to human community, our demographics and impact increased dramatically. Because partners suddenly started saying, hey, you know what, these guys are doing things not just for the dogs in isolation, but for us. Now in Richmond, for example, we had a situation where we had almost all the dogs neutered, or so we thought. So we said, let's do a quick walk. At the end of the walk, believe it or not, we found one or two which hadn't been. For people who live here, Richmond town is a very upmarket, very central business district area. So from one dog not neutered, we reached the cemetery. In the very first cemetery we went to, the graveyard, we found 2 dogs dead of starvation. We found 2 lactating mothers, 11 pups, only 8 or 9 dogs neutered, and 40 dogs. In the second, the third, and the fourth, when we added it up together, there were 100 dogs that were not fed, neutered, vaccinated. And those would come into the area, Richmond Town, creating more problems for the community around. So we reacted immediately. This is what I'm saying about strategic direction. That's what I think people like us bring in. The team works on this. So we said, we like names, okay? So we call the park dogs the parkies, and the metro dogs the metrics, the petrol bunk dogs the bunkies. So we're cute about all this. We just love our names. So we call the cemetery dogs the gravities. And we set up a program called Project Gravities. And today, we've installed a cage at our cost. We've undertaken a feeding program for 100 dogs. We have neutered almost about 35 dogs. No, altogether, so it's more than that, it's about maybe close to 50. And we have vaccinated about 50. The dogs are fed inside the cage, so they are easily caught, they're friendlier. Somebody actually gets dog toys. Now, this is how a community comes together. Do you think the impact of this is on the dogs? It's not. It's on the human community, who's going to be seeing a lot less bites, a lot less births of puppies, a lot less human-animal aggression, and also people who come to the graveyards. Now, at least it's a much more civic thing, because now we are separating out where the food is, how do we feed, and so on. So this is a very small, what a routine kind of example of what we would do. But communities make a difference. So I can tell you hundreds of stories across the squads, but I will not bore you. But I can tell you that the potential for good and the sheer heart that Bangalore has, and what communities can do for their own. Because as I said, if I live here, I can manage this. But if you tell me, in Electronic City this is happening, humanly, I'm kind of, sort of limited by not being able to go there, and very frankly, not being invested enough. But in my area, I'm concerned. I'm very concerned. So if any dog is hurt, it's immediately flagged, and so on. So these squads, if you ask me, are in some way not a cute thing that we've set up to do good for communities and dogs. It's a very strategic intervention which actually mirrors the government of the city. Zones, ward committees. So we actually have ward committees for dogs, and they network. They work with their Rotary, they work with their police department, the BBMP, which is the civic authority, with the SPCA. So it's like a little civic government community. So it's interesting.
So from Steel Flyover Beda to Cubbon Park Canines, what draws you repeatedly into these movements, and what does activism really mean to you?
I detest the word activism.
Okay.
I detest it because I feel it's like a rebel without a cause. It's like you have, ye hua hai, let's go running and fix it. The good thing is there are many people to fix things today. And activism implies a certain, and maybe it's my interpretation, I may be completely wrong, but it implies a certain lack of strategy, thinking through, and a certain reactiveness, which even if I have, I'm not very proud of it. So I have stayed as an engaged, maybe evangelist or engaged citizen, but I'm not too sure whether I'm an activist. I'm not too sure. I don't own the word, Neha. I wish I could, but I don't own the word. And I'm sure there are fantastic activists who own the word and are proud of it. I feel a sense of distance. But to come back to what you were saying, which is, why of it. I need to take you back to a person who I was, which I worked in the corporate space. I was very strong, even at a much younger age, on the issue of, say, especially women's leadership. And what you see today, it's heaven compared to some of the stuff that we went through when we were much younger. So I'm not going to say, you don't know what you went through. No, it's not that. I'm saying we are moving on whatever has been done in generations before. We really are. So that was a space I was very invested in. And obviously, in terms of business, I was very successful in some of the stuff that I did. And as a search consultant, because I loved the ability to work with people and in some ways take them home to places where they could impact, add value. When I took over as the first head of the Women's Business Leader Forum for CII, and I realized the ability to impact, uh, which was so vast. And one lady actually told me that her mother-in-law says, you come to work, it was like a luxury, like she can get away to do work, which is a fun thing for her instead of staying at home. I think some of the experiences and harassment at those days were very different. Let me tell you, it was much more blatant and much more out there, the belittling and things like that. So I realized there was a lot that we could do in terms of just enabling, listening, being empathetic, and also in some ways drawing boundaries and drawing goalposts. So I think I started stepping up and accepting the fact that some of us had to be there and visible. So I was, chair of the Women's Business Leader Forum, and then I set up, I was a founder chair for the Women's Business Council because I was already the chair for Indo-American Chamber. There, I think I was able to mainstream a lot, bring a lot of credibility. I was the first woman chairperson at that time for IAC. So it just became par for the course, and then a lot of small things happened. But the big thing was the steel flyover. All I can say was that I have never been filled with more rage and more impotent rage than I had at that moment. I was not informed, I was not aware, I did not know how to handle this. I felt a very small cog in the city wheel, helpless, vulnerable, not in control of my destiny or my city's destiny. It was a very powerful moment for me when I heard that they were going to do this, and it happened and it died. But the beautiful thing was when it came, the steel flyover came back on the table, and that's when you realize the fact that government also happens like this. The motion for the steel flyover that was brought in again, it was nixed the first time, brought in again, because apparently 900 people had said yes, we want it, was because somebody had passed away in the legislation. So they had put a vote of, condolence and all that. And then somebody just put this thing saying, we need to pass this. And it was passed. So it's like a sandwich approach, right? You have this and you have this, ye bhi. And the next thing you know, in July, I still remember, steel flyover is on. It meant that a steel Godzilla was taking over the city. Now you can imagine in London, in the Parliament Square, if somebody just decides to put one huge steel mesh and say, okay, that's how you're going to do it. It was not the visual, it was not the aesthetics, it was what it was going to do. I put up a post which came from my heart. It was a Facebook post. Facebook was a big thing then. And I said one thing, I said, remember MG Road. The metro took over MG Road. Not a single citizen except for one person like Ravi Chandra tried to say, bury the metro. MG Road is ruined because we decided to go above board. And I said, we can't let this happen again. This is the same thing multiplied by 500. And we were losing thousands of trees. So the steel flyover was my transition into three things: utter vulnerability and utter helplessness, a sense of rising. That post that went out got hundreds of people, thousands perhaps, rallying. How can we help? Then you realize there were so many people like me who really wanted to do things and who really wanted to save their city, but there was no collective voice. And they were like, oh, you people, you don't want development. It was you, us, them. And we had been quietly guilted into that space for so long that we believed that was the only way to go. And the movement started. I cannot tell you how much we did in terms of gathering information, understanding civic issues, understanding the structure that allowed and should prevent something like this. The impact on trees, the impact on people. But we got ISC, we got different departments, people who were planners of the city. We got this completely motley group of people together, and we sat and we talked. And I remember in my own corporate way, I said, so we shall have a meeting and we will all discuss, we will have a panel and we will debate on what this issue is, and we will tell the powers that be that we don't want something like this to happen. And there was we were 5 people who were part of the original Steel Flyover Beda movement. And Prakash Belawadi, who's a well-known, in fact, he used to write for your paper as well. He just looked at me and says, no, I think we'll just do a human chain. I fell off my chair because I said, human chain? There'll be 4 people who turn up. And what human chain? And in October, I still remember, my dog was so ill and I had just taken him for a blood transfusion. And I came back. The human chain was supposed to start at Chalukya Circle, which is exactly where my house is. 7:45, 8 o'clock it's supposed to start. we've told people, come and cycle, come and bike. So we thought a few people will turn up, and I said, I'm just praying that, at least 100 people turn up, it's okay. Up to, I would think, 7:45 to maybe close to 8, there were 4 or 5 people. In 20 minutes, we had 1,000, and then we had close to 10,000. And it was peaceful. It was utterly magical to see what a city and a citizen can do, and how much love people had for their city, and how much their collective helplessness came together to say, don't mess with me.
Yeah.
Suddenly the city had a voice. And then, of course, whether you look at the engagements that we did, the corollaries from there, whether it was Bus Bhagya, trying to get more buses, because we realized the issue of it was not just the steel flyover. The route was transportation, because of which somebody says, let's put some 5 flyovers, we presumably will go faster. Why weren't the powers that be get suburban trail, metros much earlier? We could have been transporting the city and moving it much faster. So out of understanding and knowledge and speaking to experts, all of us suddenly became a lot more aware, more switched on. What are the mechanics of the politics and bureaucratic systems that can work towards a better, more collaborative, more democratic result? What is law? What is not law? What can be done? What can't be done? This was the information that we heard because we had these seminars, we had people coming over for a public consultation. And this was the moment that not just me, but a lot of Bangalore crossed the Rubicon in terms of becoming more empowered and feeling a sense, I can do it. So the steel flyover was, I would say, a window of opportunity. So you have, for example, lake issues or NGT issues or transport issues or corruption. And it's been going on for a long time. There are people who've been fighting for years, much before the steel flyover came in, much before. The lake warriors, the green warriors, you look at people who have been looking at solid waste. They're incredible people, but somehow voices in the wilderness. This was the window. It was there, the steel flyover, and suddenly it was like everything went through it. Everything went through it. It was like just the power of the possible. That was it.
Yeah.
And so, did it matter by itself? Yes, it did. But did it matter? You always felt like it's not about you. Somebody has to do it. I think this somebody
Notion,
suddenly became me. I'm not saying me. That's what it. And I think that was a huge transition. So the movement into these was because of an increasing feeling of being the possibility that you could make an impact and you're choosing not to. That was wrong. When you know you could do something and you didn't, that was really, it felt like you were not maxing out what your job in this world is.
Yeah.
So I think that building community is creating a sense of coherence, a sense of result orientation, I think was very, very important.
Perfect. So I think this must have been the most emotionally challenging campaign for you. Would you say that?
It was the highest learning for me. We won public opinion, but we actually won the stopping much later. And by the time, a lot of other things had started. There were 2 campaigns that probably are the most emotionally painful or impactful for me. One was ban online pet sales, which was when we started discovering that animals were being sold online like products. So OLX, which had stopped by that time, Just Dial, Marshalls, Facebook, by the way, has very strong rules on sales overseas, but here they seem to be quite lax. And one day a little puppy was bought online as a gift. So it's your birthday, I don't know what to do, so I buy a lab puppy and give it to you. It's 5,000 rupees because they're so badly bred, backyard breeding, horrible things. And that little puppy was sick. And there's a picture of a woman called Anushri she's falling asleep because she's holding the pup in her arms. And that picture, I realized how many thousands of pups would have been bought online, sick and dying terrible deaths because they were just a toy for somebody. And then I realized how rampant it was, how much breeding was going on, and how many families and dogs were suffering because people were just buying things like you were buying literally a potato. And we have a lovely picture of a pup and onions and potatoes in, those 3 baskets, vegetable baskets. There was a puppy, onions and potatoes. It just gave a very impactful focus on how animals were being treated. So I started this campaign called Ban Online Pet Sales and we took on many of the biggest names. And it was painful because we saw what was happening. It was painful because we saw corporate greed in the worst way. People just wanted to drive traffic to their site, so they would do it because cute puppies are cute puppies, right? They'll drive, so you'll come there and you may buy a car, who knows. It was tragic, it was heartbreaking, it was very hard to handle, but we ran an online petition. We got some 40,000 signatures immediately. We started reining in our legal experts to deal with this, and it was emotionally very hard because it went national, and we were part of a group that eventually led to the implementation of a law which is called dog breeding and marketing rules. We triggered a law which the Animal Welfare Board of India finally released, which says if a organization does anything illegal on their website, they can shut it down. So if today Google decides to sell dogs without permission on their website, imagine shutting down a Google. Technically you can do that. So that's the kind of impact we finally had. And of course today you try looking for dogs online, unless it's a registered breeder with a certificate, you cannot get them online.
Wow,
so what we've done is we've removed about 3,000 to 4,000 dogs a month, all India, from slavery and sale. The converse of just buying these dogs is they get dumped, they get thrown out, they get abandoned, and sometimes they're left on the roads. And guess who looks after them? People like you and me. The law says you cannot buy a dog under 60 days of age. The law now clearly says you cannot buy on impulse. And the third thing is you cannot buy from an unregistered breeder. And guess what? Karnataka has one registered breeder.
Wow.
Who does only some German Shepherds. I think he's somewhere far away. Basically, any sale of any pup is illegal in Karnataka. That's the situation. You can get around it. There's so many places you can adopt from. Why don't you do it? So the ban online pet sales had an upside. It was emotionally very, very draining because we had legal work. We were dealing with Animal Welfare Board of India. We were dealing with these corporate, absolutely greedy people. The ones who said to me, Priya, I can guarantee you we're going to remove these dogs from our site. We will follow all the rules. Don't worry. And they didn't do a squat. We were shocked to see it. And some of the people are still very much active in the business world today, but it made me very sad. And it was very, very hard for us to deal with the legal side, with the ecological side, the breeders, the endemicness of it, all that.
Yeah.
And the second one was a program called Traffic Free Carbon Park. Traffic Free Carbon Park is the only campaign that we lost. We won, it came right up to here, and at the last minute, the Joint Commissioner on Traffic said no. COVID brought a lot of good things also. The park, Carbon Park, for the first time, lived in its complete and utter glory. I cannot tell you how beautiful it was. So all we said was, like Lal Bagh, let's also look at making Carbon Park traffic free.
Yeah.
So it's not that we just said it. We got research done by ISC, we got research done by others. We worked with DULT, Department of Urban Land Transport, with the ISC for the environmental people. We got opinion leaders across the city, including Kiran Mazumdar, and then all of them to come in and talk about what do they think about this. And everybody was pro it, including the horticulture minister. So we said, remove it. Let's get to the Lal Bagh way. And it takes between 0 and 6 minutes more for you to go around Carbon Park. So in fact, it's Harish Biju coined the word Pradakshine Haki, which basically means go around. When you go to a temple, you say, go around that. You don't have to go through the temple. Just like that, Carbon Park is a temple. We had a child called Kian who actually put a PIL saying, I want the park back. So we won. At the very last stage this happened. That was very heartbreaking because the interpretation of the park was left to finally the authorities. And the authorities made a decision that they wouldn't do it. So we still have 2 days of traffic free in Carbon Park, but we don't have a complete traffic free. I don't know whether anybody here has even thought about taking a car into Lal Bagh. You can't. When did it happen? Some bureaucrat in 1974 said, sorry, we're not going to allow you to do it. Carbon Park is not a thoroughfare. It's a piece of our soul, So these two were very hard campaigns. I would say very different ones. I have to say that as far as my age is concerned, I'm a little not so current with with younger women today, because what women are experiencing now is a far more sophisticated, far more more nuanced working place, and a space that does not have the boring, structured corporate or teacher or doctor kind of lives. It's so fluid. You can take a break, you can come back and explore another world. The number of lawyers I know who are in different spaces is not funny, for example.
Yeah.
So mentoring for me, and I've in my earlier avatar, especially when I was on the councils, was a lot working with women, trying to free them of what got them, bogged them down. You know, if I had to, I would look at it as a combination of removing their concrete shoes and giving them wings. Not that I did all of it. I'm just saying that's my visual.
Yeah.
Wings and get rid of those damn shoes. Because that's what is holding us down. We were really as strong as what we could do. And I have to also add this, Neha, that while we may talk about, while I may say this, a lot of what I do is say, do what I say, don't do what I do. Because I am guilty many, many times of failing utterly in some of the things that I should be doing, or how I should pursue goals or responsibilities, and I'm sure all of us do it, but we know what should be done. So as long as someone is able to accept my reality, that's saying I know this is what I would say you should do. And there's a lot more today, Neha, I think, in terms of people who don't really need an external validation. So mentoring has changed. Mentoring is a lot more aggressive now, saying, okay, so not just help me with this and how do I get ahead at work. It's like, I want to do this. I've done this for 2 years. I want to be able to get into my own business at 2027, and I'm looking at these few spaces. So can you tell me how I can move towards it? I'm talking about that kind of stuff that's happening now. So you've got to be expert in what you're doing. And I always encourage people who I work with or mentor or, try and advise, whatever, is to allow themselves to be all the people they can be. That's one of the things that I really, truly believe is a very important part of who they are. And, also remember, there's also a hypocrisy which I'm conscious of. While we talk about this 20% of women who are doing this, that, and the other, we are not talking about a whole bunch of people at semi-urban, rural, who have a very much more life and death vision of women's equality, of mentoring. But the good news is expectations. So I'm really talking to a very small creme de la creme of people, and I'm saying, okay, how do I hoist you up, if at all? I mean, I have no false illusions about what I can do, but one of the things that I set up, which in COVID was something called Mentor Rise. Mentor Rise. Meant to rise. And that was, I said, see, I value my time. So let me assume that you would like me to spend some time with you. Let's make this something interesting. Let's make it interesting is what the mafia said. So let's make it interesting. What I would say is like, okay, so I'm focused on heritage or welfare or city. So you say, listen, you know what? I need to spend some time with you. Why should I spend some time with you, Neha? What do I get by mentoring you? But you know what? I don't squat about heritage, but I'd love to spend some time. So here I'm going to confirm to you, I'm going to spend 8 hours a month on issues related to heritage, which you tell me about. I will learn, I will come back and I will give that update to you, and I will try and invest. I'm suddenly more interested in you because now the barter system is at work. And guess what it does to the community? Somebody is now learning about heritage. Somebody is now going to invest a little bit of time, is making themselves more holistic, has suddenly got one more spoke to their wheel. Isn't it a win-win?
Yes, absolutely.
So that's something that we were exploring at that time. But COVID was hard, and it did great things, it did terrible things, it did life and death things. But this was one of the things that I explored. Your question was on mentoring. Do we move on?
Yes. So you said women need to give up the guilt.
Yeah.
How did you unlearn guilt in your own journey?
I don't think I have. No. I don't think I have. But I do know the terrible burden that guilt weighs on a woman. It's like, if you have a hammer, everything's a nail, right? In some ways it was like that. You somebody just had to say one thing about, but how do you manage this? No, I try, but you just get into the whole explanatory, defensive kind of mode. Now today I can say, so, yeah, what is this pointless question? I mean, what is it that you want to... I can say that. I can articulate that in my head, but I may not actually voice it. But women, you can just... I can guilt you in 1 second, just like that. We have our triggers. And each of us have different triggers. I'm not being offensive to men by saying men don't have triggers. They do. But women carry such a high set of expectations. If somebody attacks you on one of your roles, you feel the need to explain.
Yeah.
But how do you manage with this? So somebody cooks for you at home. I learned to take things lightly, make a joke out of it, and be grateful for what I had. I was very lucky. My husband is one of the most wonderful people I know, when I'm not telling him he's not. But he is just matter-of-factly supportive. I don't think he thinks about it, so I'm being a supportive husband. He just does stuff. I mean, what he does better, he does. Whatever I do better, I do. And it's just been like that. And I think increasingly relationships are moving into that space.
Yeah.
The roles and the structure is kind of more fluid, which is what I'm saying is something we in this generation are taking for granted. And I'm so grateful because that is what, remember wings, remember concrete shoes. These concrete shoes have to go if you truly want to develop your potential. But it's hard. You can guilt me about everything. You can wake me up in the middle of the night saying, have you done this for heritage? You told me. I was saying, no. So it's taking on a lot more than you can chew. But it's also about feeling responsible to different worlds, and feeling like you're inadequate at most of them and therefore trying to cope. I think one of the biggest things that women can give themselves is to lose this quest for perfection. We've been brought up differently, and
I know.
so if
Our
you see
DNA
today's
is
women with their strength, with their resilience, and with their ability to say, to hell with you, I'm not saying I appreciate just pointless aggression, but I'm just saying, I am so proud. I'm saying, good for you. Good for you.
So after a long corporate career, what inspired you to take the leap and co-create Multiverse?
Yeah. So when I was...
and what does it mean to you personally?
Yeah. I mean, yes, thank you for that question. So I've spent, a number of years with a company, with Diners Club when I started, DBS. So I've always been in pioneering businesses. The credit card was a pioneering business. The business center one was. And then I moved into something completely different. After almost, I think, nearly 19 years of working, I got into executive search and I discovered purpose because I loved the business. I loved the fact that we were able to, it was a consulting-oriented business. It was something where, you're working with the nuts and bolts of a company, trying to understand their ethos, what they want to do, how they want to grow. So in some ways, it was about leadership, advisory, strategy, and then working with people, in terms of being able to sort of figure out where the match lay. So I was vice president of Stanton Chairs, and then I headed the global diversity practice, which was, I actually instituted the diversity practice for Stanton Chairs at the time. And, the transitions that happen when it's a Japanese firm. So we transitioned, and I was on the board for 3 years. And finally, I said, you know what? For years, I've been saying I need to take a break. I have never not worked for 35 years. I have worked. When my mom passed away, I took 6 days off. And I needed that time to be able to reflect. The one break I had was with Chevening. And Chevening was an extraordinary experience because for me, if you ask me, even the origins of the steel flyover came from the Chevening because we were put together as NGO, corporate, and government. We all had a healthy distrust of each other. You NGOs, you corporates, you government types. And we learned what it was like to work together. And we had a couple of colleagues, we had a couple of people from elsewhere. I had my colleague from Germany, I had somebody from Delhi, and of course 2 of my colleagues from here. And it's been going on in my mind. And this is something which my ex-boss hates me talking about, but I will say it anyway. Wonderful man, one of the most amazing search consultants I've seen in my life. But he always told me, he says, Priya, you're the chair of the Indo-American Chamber. You do a lot of work with the women's leadership. You seem to be crazy about dogs. You seem to be always involved in some city issues. And you're one of my best search consultants because I used to top everything, year after year. My billings were the highest. And he said, can you imagine what you could do if you just focused on search? And I remember telling him, saying, but I am who I am because I'm all these people. And that's when I realized that this is something where in a company, it would not be appreciated. But in my own, all of us have these parts of ourselves that we needed to celebrate. And so we did. So in my mind, I thought about many names. And the name that finally came to me was, I said, but I told my boss, I said, but we're part of multiple universes. And that's when multiversal came in, that we are multiversal. So we're at the bottom end of the tree, as women, we are always multiversal, right? We do this, we do that. But we are so much more. And in the organization, one of the reasons why I brought up that name was we wanted to build a brand which had a little bit more heart, which had more impact on the community. For example, a percentage of our profits goes into welfare things. And ours is particularly in the animal welfare because nobody invests in, nobody donates to that space. It's not sexy enough. Our questionnaire to people was never just about what you do, it's about who else you are. And when we interviewed candidates and clients, we were asking them who else you are. So while we understood that, we were able to bring in candidates which were a little bit more respectful and more resonant with their values. Vice versa, with the candidates. Many of them wouldn't even talk about all the things that they did. But we made it clear that that's also what we want to incorporate. So when the clients were were introduced, they got a candidate who was doing not just what they brought to the table, but also who else they were. And I think those candidates not only contributed to their bottom line, but contributed to their triple bottom line, which is looking at how they enhance the company value. So we've seen so many candidates who've gone into companies and are not just doing well, but also are very well entrenched in the spaces of their own CSR activities. And I'm not saying CSR in that kind of way, genuinely trying to make a difference.
Sure.
And because the company invests back in them, the work that they were doing, they were really spending some time and value on. So we called it the win-win-win formula, where we looked at the company, the 3 C's, the client, the candidate, and the community. And very often we found that we are headhunters. So at the end of it, you give me an assignment and I will get you the candidates. And it's a very horrible way of putting it, but we would do an extensive search. We understand the business, then we do an extensive search for the right people. So you may come to me as a candidate, but I'm not able to engage with you, but because I don't have the right search. Here what we were doing was, even if we don't have the right search, we're asking the candidate, what else do you do? Somebody says, my father died terribly and we always worried about how old people go. I said, you know what, why don't you look at the Karunashraya hospice? They're doing some great work. Maybe you'd like to spend some time with them. So we were giving them things to do and we were engaging and we were asking them, how did it work? So we were growing them in that space. So while we didn't have a job immediately, we had interesting things that were happening. And then COVID hit. So the exact same things that we talked about, which was respecting time, respecting boundaries, we ended up realizing that COVID forced you to do that. So in some ways, we were prescient. We were ahead of our time in the way we thought, and that continues. But multiversal, I think for me, will always be a dream. And all of us who are colleagues, really invest in that space. We all do different things.
Sure.
And we're all respectful of each other's space and time. And the fact that you don't have to do 12 hours at work. I mean, there are times that I have slept at 4 o'clock, woken up at 6, because that was the time we were working around the clock. We were working on different time zones. Sometimes it's like that, sometimes it's not. But today, I am doing 5 different things, and I'm so grateful that I can be allowed to do it. So that's one of the things I enjoy as an entrepreneur, that your what they call the locus of control is with you. And if you tend to spend too little time on your business, you make a lot less money. That's okay.
Nice, thank you. So you've said Bangalore for life. What makes the city feel like a living, breathing partner in your work?
Bangalore has moved from a place that I loved, I occupied, I grew up in, fell in love, met my friends, went to school, went to college. Post Steel Flyover, it moved into a space, a time, a concept that I needed to protect. That feeling of saying, we have used you for long enough, it's time to give back. So for me, Bangalore is life, it's a promise. But Bangalore's also somebody who spoke to me. I mean, I visualize Bangalore a lot. And I will never, I mean, she probably saw me coming in, Sandhya saw me, if I see green, I will stop for a second to just engage, because I believe that for every green, I'm so grateful.
Yes.
You know, when Bangalore speaks to me, I mean, I hear her saying, and yes, it is a woman, yes, it's maternal, yes, it's nurturing. She's nurturing, but I hear, please let me survive. Please let me live. Please allow me to thrive so I can care for you more. You know, so there's a feeling of, you know, a sort of thing that we work together. It's like I care for Bangalore more, Bangalore cares more for us. And we really inherit this place from the next generation. So at the end of it, what can we do? I realize cliches are cliches for a reason, but they do say what is difficult to articulate, which is you inherit this space from your children. You don't like square feet. Cut 380 trees when I don't own the property. So you can see when citizens get involved, I can cut the ground from under your feet, because we've spent some time trying to figure out how we can solve the problem. So I have this thing which I keep saying, that I'm not particularly respectful of those who say, I mean, not particularly excited about those people who say, let's light a candle. We must light a candle to dispel the darkness. Yes, light a candle. Find the damn light switch. There's a light switch. You just haven't found it. You're so busy saying, light a candle. We must. No. There are always shortcuts. There are always things that can be done. When you look for the light switch, first thing you're looking. So you have a different perspective. Second, when you put it on, you're helping a lot more people. And third, it's sustainable. And fourth, you're letting your mind work in a different way.
Yeah.
So I am a great believer of the light switch moment. I'm saying, candle, apne ghar mein rakho. Right now, I'm looking for light switches. My life, I think, is in some way looking for light switches. I like single lever, big impact. I know I can be very impatient. I know I can be very demanding. And I also know that I set high standards. And I think it's better in some ways because people are, you know, getting the best of themselves out.
Elevated.
I don't think they particularly like it. But, you know, I tend to sort of say, let's get the best out of ourselves. But because of this impatience, this has been said to me by somebody, and it's suddenly, I had a aha experiencing, okay, that's interesting. She says, whenever I find you hitting a wall, she says, there are only two things I see you do. Either breaking a window or finding out there's been a door all along. I'm saying maybe that's it. You know, we've got to find our ways of dealing with the brick wall. And sometimes it's not always the standard thing of sitting in the corner and saying, I will break out one brick at a time. You've got to think through it. And there's nothing you can do without a community. The only way this works is with a community. I will tell you about thinking hard. In Heritage Beku, and why I said bring your mind to the table. There was a small little thing that happened. Look up a program called Kill Bill, based on the Uma Thurman, you know.
Sure.
The Karnataka government decided to bring in amendment to the Karnataka Tree Protection Act, which added another 25 species that you could cut without seeking permission. That is, the parastatals, the BBMP, BWSSB, BESCOM, etc., could cut without taking permission, which means something very simple. I was talking to a friend of mine, Harini, and she said, do you know, these species means that technically 85%, 90% of all the trees in Bangalore can be cut without permission. So can you see how insidious it was that the government just gave itself an out? Now, are they the enemy? Not at all. I'm saying sometimes we work at cross purposes. But the High Court is a huge, I mean, I respect them so much because of what they've done, where they've been able to bring a stop to things. Grateful for that. But here was something that was an aha moment for us saying, how can it happen? And then we started that campaign. We had something called Grays for Green because Bangalore had become grey instead of green. So we had the Grays for Green campaign. We had the Hug the Trees. So we had the Black and White campaign where people were hugging trees. I know, very cheesy, but it worked. And we had a beautiful picture of our freedom fighter, Doraiswamy, who was a picture of him in a tree-lined avenue of Jayanagar, an old man walking away on the street. And again, those trees would go. And then we had something called Storm the Souther. And of course, 56,000 signatures on a petition. We use the petitions as a way of communicating the information of what exactly is the problem. Otherwise, you'd say, yeah, some trees, I don't know. The problem is communicated and it's easy. That once you read it, you can sign that you approve or whatever. They just sat at the Saudha to make sure that that bill wouldn't go through. Because half the thing, just like that, condolence message, it just goes through. And before you notice, I think the government realized these were hawks. We were just waiting and we stopped it. So did we do something wonderful? It was very small, but did it have a great impact? It had a great impact. Because those trees cannot be cut without formal public consultation anymore.
Wow, wonderful. But do you feel with the growing water problems, issues in Karnataka, with the traffic, do you think Bangalore will be habitable in 50 years?
Bangalore will always be habitable. For the people who live here, those people will be fierce in protecting their city. The government is increasingly partnering. For the first time, 5 or 6 years ago, when the elections happened, we had politicians coming to us to share their manifesto. I didn't know how to spell the word manifesto. I never thought a politician would come to us and say, we are making a manifesto, we would like to incorporate your points. So yes, we are being heard. We are being heard. No, not just me, everyone. As I said, please forgive my Trump thing. Because I say I, because, it just sounds odd to say we, like a royal we also. But hey, city steps up. City cares. Government, despite, is responding. Bureaucrats are much more aligned than one would think. There are going to be political economies that we have to take care of. There are going to be things that go wrong. I think the planners have to get their act together. Heritage Baku spent 700 man-hours on the revised master plan 2031, 6 years ago. And finally it was thrown out by the courts, not because of us. It was the concept was basically who was the agency who could make it. We put in a lot of effort and time with urban planners, with citizens, with architects, with bureaucrats to try and make sure the city was more habitable. We are one of the very few cities left in India which do not have a master plan. And we are the city that is growing at such a high rate that it's almost impossible to keep up. So we are going to see a lot of downs. But is it going to be habitable? We are going to have a stretch. But as long as there is green, there is this weather, there are the people, and they are the fierce, loyal protectors of Bangalore, the warriors of Bangalore.
How did your father's army influence impact your personal growth? And how did your family adapt to challenges and opportunities that came? Also, I would love to hear about your wedding that happened in the army mesh.
That was a bit crazy. My husband keeps telling me that you don't identify with any particular, he's a Tamilian Iyer. I am a mix of everything. My parents came from Lahore and Karachi. So, and I do get a bit of a raised eyebrow saying, how did that happen? But they did. My mother was born in Karachi. My father studied till he was 16 in Pakistan before they came down deep south to Pune. My mother, of course, was a victim of partition. So I wish I had listened to her stories a little bit more. I was so insensitive when she talked about partition. There is, somebody says, oh, I am this, I'm Kannadika, I am Gujarati or whatever. I don't identify because my father, from the time I remember, and I'm saying this with without trying to sound like, I am this. If somebody asked him who he was, he says, I'm Indian. And that was his response. And he was not trying to make a statement. That was who he was. And that's how he grew up. So for me, that's a very critical part of who I am. I am Indian first. But I have to say, and my husband is very quick in pointing it out, he says, you have your little groupism going on too. And I said, what is that? He says, your identification is with Fauji. And I said, that's true. I identify with my Fauji background a lot. And one of the campaigns, as you know, which I've run, is a campaign that has brought me on to my knees, literally, is the complete national military memorial, which I ran under the banner of in my father's name, for all the fathers in the military who brought so many people into this world and done so much for their nation.
This was at Indira Gandhi.
That same place.
Yeah.
It's about a kilometer from where you are. And it's run on many facets. But I'm saying the reason why I was able to stand up for that was because of the background that I had. An army background is very different. Where many people will tell you, it teaches you to be very resilient. It teaches you to be friendly, be able to manage in any situation. I have great memories of mixing, talking, and there was no barriers. You know, it was just wonderful. And those were wonderful days. But there were also people who never came back, right, from the war. And that was always a reality. When we went to the National Military Memorial, my friend's mother, who for so many years refused to believe her husband had died in the war. She used to still wear her bindi and stuff. She broke down because she saw her husband's name in the granite walls. This is the memory we take with us everywhere. Most army families do know that that's a reality and you deal with it, you know, so that is that. My father passed away a year and a half ago, but for me, he was a lot of what an India that should be a distinguished, clean-hearted, optimistic Indian looks like, you know. But when I saw what happened to the National Military Memorial, and I saw the way the government who decided in 2009 to erect the first National Military Memorial for the country. One day I was at a TV interview somewhere in the same space, and I remember somebody saying, you know, this is not getting done, it's very disrespectful. I didn't even want the memorial to come up there, frankly, because I thought it spoiled the park. I said, why are you doing this here? Do it somewhere else. But that day when I was sitting there and I realized what had happened, I said, give it to me. We'll do this in 1 year. We know how work gets done in the corporate world. What is the problem? And of course, how naive, right, for a person from outside the space to say, oh, we'll fix it. So the politicians said, no, we also honor our people. You don't understand, madam, it's very difficult. I said, yes, I understand. And how we had to do it and how much we had to beg, including chasing Nirmala Sitharaman up the steps of Vidhan Saudha, including writing to everybody and their uncle. We went through 3 governments, BJP, JDS, Congress, then that coalition, and then BJP again, and now Congress. But in 1 year and 3 days, that 180-ton stone, which they were not able to move for 10 years or 9 years, was standing in front of that military memorial. And that day, I went on my knees and I wept. Because I said, these are martyrs. And there are 2 empty black granite slabs, which you should remember, will be filled with names going forward. We had to break 2 railway lines. We, as the BDA, we were a group of people, we worked with the government. We had to break 2 railway lines to get them through. Finally, when it came in at 5 in the morning, was an incredible moment. And of course, it got, today if you go there, it's up there. But guess what? Our job was done. We had an event about a month before when nothing was happening. We said, if the government won't listen, I'll send you the clip of that. It's an amazing story. The government won't listen, maybe God will. We got 5 religions represented, including Parsi, Christian, Hindu, Muslim, and we made them pray there, saying, please let this thing come up for our soldiers or whatever, for our martyrs. And there we had Pulwama, we had all of chest beating going on, but nobody's, such hypocrisy, so much words and so little action saying, our soldiers, our military. There they are being disrespected right in your backyard. What the heck are you doing about it? And my father was standing with Santosh Hegde in front of the unknown soldier. He looked at me and he says, I don't really know where you've come from, but thank you for doing what you're doing. For me, my father thanking me was something that really mattered. And somewhere at the end of it, he also told me, he says, you're a Fauj. You know? And yes, so when we got married, I was determined I would get married only at the place of where I lived. I wanted to be married out of a home or where I grew up, which was the Madras Sappers Mess, place that I played Holi, the place that I've gone out swimming, the place that I've begged my mother for French fries and tomato sauce and begged for Coke and, you know, done all the fun stuff that and we got married there. My mother, it was a crazy wedding. It was just a crazy wedding because the priest was speaking in one language, my in-laws were speaking in another. We were all over the place. My mother was more worried about the chole bhature than about the wedding. My father took one look at the priest. This is really funny. I mean, God rest his soul, but he's an army guy. He doesn't do stuff like this. So the priest said, so now you'll have to wash the feet of your son-in-law. What rubbish. I'm not going to do that. The priest is trying to figure out, like, what do I do with this man? The reception was right in the middle of the pool where I had been swimming all my life. And when I, in fact, had a milestone birthday, I went for the first time last year to the place that I was born. I've written Dehradun on my passport for years. And somebody asked me, I said, Aap Dehradun ke hain? And I'm saying, yeah, I feel like such a fraud, but I've never gone back there. I said, let me go back. And I went. The army just went out of its way. They were just so kind. We stayed. They took me to the military hospital that I was born. And it had become something else. It had become a school. But they got a cake. I went to say, I'm so sorry, I'm just intruding on your space. I just wanted to see where I was born. I was so embarrassed. But this was my pilgrimage. Because my parents were no more. I wanted to go back and see them as a young couple in their light, in their life, not the parents that I knew, but as people in their own right. And my God, what a wonderful thing it was, because not only did I get to see where I was born and meet some of the people there, somebody came to know I was there. They said, my father raised something called the 9 Engineer Regiment. So he's the founder, CEO of and they love him. So every year there's a lot of stuff that goes on. He says, originally he was 3 engineer, so you have to come to the regiment there. So I went into the cantonment, and I cannot tell you the reception I got. I mean, my sister-in-law and brother-in-law were with me. They're saying, are we with Shah Rukh Khan or what? Because it was just one of those things that was so utterly magical. And for me, I was like drinking it all in, because all I could think of was a very young Major D.G.K. Chetty who had left his unit to come walking down to Badrinath where he could marry the love of his life, Sharda, at that time. And there's a love story which you have to hear to believe. There it was. And I was looking at that. I was looking at a bed that was made and suddenly realizing, okay, that's why my father makes his bed like this, because it's made in a particular way, There was just like so many moments of perfection. So I'm grateful for my life. I'm grateful for the fact that I'm burning the candle on both ends. And I'm hoping that somewhere down the roller coaster when I go down, I'm spent and happy and have made a difference.
You have.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming to our podcast. And this, you shared such inspiring, amazing stories. I hope we all get inspired to do more.
From boardrooms to civic battles to canine compassion, Priya reminds us that purpose has many faces. If this episode inspired you, please don't forget to share it, leave a comment, and subscribe and follow the Expressions podcast for more stories of bold, authentic living. Until next time, stay curious, stay courageous, and keep expressing.